Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Gellermini, and I'm the host of Spectrum Perspectives. If you're new to the podcast, here's a little intro into who I am and what I do. I'm the mom of 4, and my son Robbie had profound autism. He was completely nonverbal. He had seizures and neuropathy. I live in New Jersey, where we have the highest amount of autism in the country. 1 in 32 kids are being diagnosed. I have a YouTube channel called Robbie and Me Autism Reality. It features lots of videos of Robbie where I followed him around and tried to share his journey with everyone. I had no idea that it would end when he suddenly had a seizure in his sleep. So in his memory, about a year later, I started to write stories about a little penguin with autism. You can visit my website and visit my YouTube channel to find out the whole story about the penguins. We were interviewed on the Today Show last year, and you can see all those videos on my YouTube channel. When I wrote the children's books, I told stories about my son Robbie when he was a little boy. And there's 12 chapters. There's 4 chapters in 3 different books. And at the end of every chapter, I do a mom's minute where I speak to the adults and I explain to them what happened in each chapter. And each chapter will teach different aspects about autism. You'll learn about eating issues, sleeping issues, running away, which is called eloping, stimming, all different aspects about autism, but children and adults will learn about it in a really cute and funny way in a children's book series. I also did all of the illustration. It's a great teaching tool for teachers to use in the classroom to teach students about their other fellow students that may have autism. It's also great for parents to read to siblings if you have a kid that's newly been diagnosed. It's just a great teaching tool for children and adults to learn about autism. So after I was on the Today Show last year, I did a lot of interviews on TV, radio, podcasts, and I decided to start interviewing other moms about their kids with autism as well, because I wanted to just continue to help other families that are coming along behind us and just help them however I could. The first 6 interviews I did were so good on my YouTube channel, I decided I really need to turn this into a podcast. So you can view the video versions on my YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, all the typical venues for podcasts. And today I will be interviewing someone that you may know of already, that is an autism mom, who's also an author, who also is out there in social media world, putting themselves out there, also trying to help other parents of autistic kids. So I hope you enjoy our interview today. And if you'd like to purchase the books, you can visit my website, which is called robbiesworldbook.com. And you'll also find all the links to everything that you need to know about us and what we do. You'll find out about my foundation and how we help other families. So that's it. And I hope you enjoy the interview. Stay tuned. Hi, everybody. This is Cindy with another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. And today I have a mom on with us. We were focusing on dads for a while. Now we're back to the moms. And I have Jess Ronne on here, and she's an author and a podcaster. She's has a foundation. I'm going to let her talk about all the things that she does. You can find her also on Instagram and Facebook, which is how I found you and started following. So after when I was getting ready to release my book series, I started getting back into the world of autism and trying to see what other people are doing out there. And I found Jess Plus the Mess. So hi, Jess, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I always start with the beginning and have moms always go back to the beginning when they were pregnant with their son and everything. But you have a bigger story than that. Yours starts before all of that. So I'd love you to go just start telling people your story and kind of go back to the beginning and tell us about your husband and your kids and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my story does start with the pregnancy of my son, Lucas. Up until then, I was leading what I would call a very typical life. I was married to my husband, Jason. We had a 2-year-old son. We were eager to add to our family and quickly got pregnant in 2004. I went to what I thought was a routine ultrasound appointment, and it was there that I was told that my baby had suffered a stroke in utero, and there was very little hope. And the specialist suggested termination. She said, "You're young and healthy. You won't have any problems getting pregnant again. And these babies just have a way of spontaneously aborting at some point anyway. So save yourself the headache, the hassle of waiting for the spontaneous abortion and just take care of it. And I drove home, just, tears streaming down my face, walked into the door, told my husband, Jason, the news, because he had stayed home with our 2-year-old son, Lucas. And we just dropped to our knees and prayed right then and there, and decided that we were going to put the baby in the Lord's hands and come what may. And the next, couple of months, that diagnosis came in May, and Lucas was born in August 12, 2004. The next couple of months were an intense period of wrestling with my faith, wrestling with the Lord, begging, pleading, sitting on the internet for hours on end, trying to find out ways to solve this problem as like a control freak woman, mom, as so many of us are. And eventually coming to this place of surrender and saying, and really meaning, thy will be done, Lord. If I'm meant to raise this child with special needs, give me the strength that I need. And if you are going to call this baby home, give me the strength I need to get through it. And Lucas wouldn't let go. And that's sort of the story of his life. They finally had to induce me 2 weeks before his due date, and cut me open one side of my stomach to the other, because his head was the size of a 2-year-old's at birth. Wow. And pulled him out of me, and he was just screaming with life, and I couldn't believe it. He was alive. They rushed him off to NICU. He spent 2 weeks in NICU, and then they handed us our baby and said, good luck. And we were kind of like, oh, so we're going from this baby has no hope to here you go. Good luck. And that was my induction into the world of special needs parenting. The first couple of years were intense, as it is with so many of these children, but I honestly didn't even grieve. I grieved during the pregnancy. And once I went home with a live baby, I didn't care what came along with him. Like, he was alive and I had my baby, and that was a gift. So he was delayed in everything. He didn't sleep well, numerous ear infections, just, et cetera, et cetera. And then we finally kind of got into this groove when he was around 3 years old. And we had our third child, a daughter, in February 2007. And then my husband, Jason, started having all these unexplained health problems. He was losing his vision, losing weight like crazy, very disoriented, and he kept going to specialists, and they would say, you just have to get your blood sugar levels under control. They diagnosed him with type 1 diabetes, which was so strange because he was a personal trainer, a gym owner, a tennis professional, like the epitome of health and fitness. And he could not get these blood sugar levels under control, according to them. And then one night, I believe it was June 2007, I left Jason home with the 3 kids, 3 kids under 5 at this point, and just said, I'm going to run across town to my dad's house. I have to pick something up. Will you be okay? Because he had good days and bad days. And he's like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. Pulled into my dad's driveway about 20 minutes away, and my phone rings, and it's Jason. Jess, call 911. And the phone went dead. So I whipped back to my house to find ambulances and cop cars, and they're loading Jason into an ambulance, and come to find out he had a seizure. But right before he seized until passing out, he felt it coming on, and put Caleb in front of the TV, our oldest, to watch a movie, put Lucas in his exerciser, and put baby Mabel in her bouncy seat, strapped her in, and then seized until he passed out.
Wow.
And that was the night we finally got answers. Come to find out, he had a baseball-sized brain tumor. They rushed him to the hospital, prepped him for immediate surgery. He rebounded very successfully. It was only a grade 2, so they gave us the option to watch and wait. They said, oftentimes these tumors don't return for 10, 15, 20 years. And then you just readdress it then. And we were just like, thank you, Lord. Our period of trials is over. Like, we were just having faith that we were going to walk into our promised land and not have to deal with any of this stuff anymore. And so, like I mentioned, he rebounded. He was full of life, feeling great for the first time in a long time because this tumor had been growing, and we found ourselves unexpectedly pregnant with our fourth child. And it was during this pregnancy that Jason was receiving quarterly MRI visits just to monitor what the tumor was doing or not doing. And Lucas began screaming like uncontrollably, and we could not get to the bottom of what his issues were. We thought maybe ear infections or stomach issues, and just specialist after specialist.
And he didn't speak, I'm assuming.
He did not speak. He was nonverbal. Autism never even entered my mind. It was kind of a different period. Like, I mean, he'll be turning 18. So in my world, it was just this banner of special needs. Right. And nobody ever said autism. But part of that too, and looking back now, we weren't doing all of Lucas's therapy appointments because I had a husband who had cancer. So as long as Lucas stayed healthy, that was like the only priority when it came to Lucas, because I was so focused on my husband, Jason. So had we been going to all of those, somebody might have said at some point the word autism, but it just never came up. And so let me think here. June 2009, I'll sort of paint this picture. Luke is screaming all the time. We finally get a diagnosis. He has Chiari malformation and a tethered spinal cord, which is in essence, his spinal cord was growing into his brain, causing immense pain. So we schedule him for surgery. I have my 20-week ultrasound appointment with my fourth child, which is major anxiety induced situation for me because of what happened with Lucas. I go to that, everything looks wonderful. We have a clean bill of health for this fourth child. Jason goes to his quarterly MRI appointment. Like, this all occurs in June 2009. He calls me up and says, Jess, the brain tumor is back. I have to check myself into ER immediately. So I'm 20 weeks pregnant. We have 3 children, 6 and under, and my husband now has brain cancer again. So he goes down, checks himself into ER.
How old were you guys at this time?
31 or 32. 32.
Yeah, it's so young. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm scrambling to find care for the kids so I can go be with my husband. And they again remove a baseball-sized tumor. And I'm sitting beside his mom as Jason's recovering in his hospital room. And the doctor comes walking in with the results of the biopsy. And she grabs my hand and he said, I'm so sorry, but your husband has stage 4 glioblastoma and the life expectancy is about 14 months. So he began treatments immediately, radiation and chemo. I gave birth to Joshua that September 2009. And then that whole next year was just a blur between, raising 4 kids, 6 and under, and Jason's treatments. And he passed away on August 24, 2010. And I was 33 years old with 4 children, 7 and under, 1 with profound special needs.
Was anyone helping you? You said your parents were not far away.
Yeah, we had a village. I mean, the Christian school, the church, family, relatives, friends. Like, I did not cook a meal for a year and a half. Okay. But during that time too, like, so few people really wanted to help with and I'm doing air quotes here, scary kid like Luke. Yeah. So it was still really me with the baby who was nursing and Luke, and then a husband who was losing more and more of his capabilities every day because of the cancer.
Yeah. Just because I'm just thinking your kids are so little. Like, I have little grandsons now that are like 1, 3, and 5, and they're such a handful to take care of. I mean, they're just constant motion toddlers, you're just constantly chasing after them. They're getting into everything. And I'm like, how are you handling all these kids and the special needs kids and going through with your husband? And I'm sitting here thinking that you're going through all of this trauma while you're pregnant with your baby. It's just.
Yeah, the doctor had a unique suggestion, excuse me, for that, because I had a panic attack in the middle of that pregnancy. And he was like, I would never recommend this in normal situations, but he said, go home, take a warm bath, pour yourself a glass of wine, and calm down. He was like, you need to take the edge off, or this baby is not going to do well. And it's so funny. Joshua is now 12 and he is the most laid back kid in the world. I not from the one glass of wine, but from like, it's just amazing. I think the grace that the Lord put around that little baby in my womb, even, because he does not operate from a place of trauma at all.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. That's good. Oh, okay. So, so now what? So now you're a single mom with 4 kids, and you've got, thank God for church friends, because they really step in and they help. If people don't have that, who's going to help you? And like you said, with the meals and everything, which is great. So now I know you're remarried. So how did that come about?
It's kind of funny. A week after Jason's funeral, Jason's mom pulled me aside and said, I just want you to know I'm praying for your next husband.
Wow.
She said, I know you can't do this on your own, and you need a godly man to come beside you and help you. And she said, the Lord gave me a very clear vision that Jason has run his race and he ran it faithfully. And now he is going to pass the baton on to another godly man. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, Mom, and 3 months later, Halloween night, I had been blogging through all of this and just, keeping the masses up to date with daily or weekly blog posts to let them know how I was doing and Jason was doing. And Halloween night, I took the kids out and, came home exhausted, put them all to bed, and sat down at the computer to check on my blog and the comments. And a woman left a comment just saying, I have no idea why I'm reaching out to you. And she lived in Pennsylvania. I lived in Michigan. She said, but there's this young widower who's your age. He lost his wife to brain cancer 4 days after Jason died. He has 3 young children and he's not doing very well. And I just think you could be a source of encouragement to him. So I went and found his blog and just left a little comment, said,
oh, he wrote a blog too?
Yeah, he blogged through the whole thing as well. So I just left a comment and said, if you ever want to talk, feel free to reach out. And I woke up the next day to an email from him. And that email led to nonstop emails. We were on the phone within 2 weeks, and we ended up meeting each other in Savannah, Georgia in December. And honestly, could have gotten married there, but we didn't. We decided to wait a few months. We were married within the next year. He moved to Michigan with his 3 kids. And we just settled into life together. We sort of thought this was our new happily ever after, but that's not exactly how it goes with, blended and 7 grieving children and grieving spouses. And we had a lot of stuff to work through. But next month we'll be celebrating our 11th anniversary.
Wow. How did the kids handle the whole Brady Bunch blend?
They were so easy when they were younger. Which was kind of shocking to us. They were so excited to have like a mom and a dad again, and to have all these new siblings to play with. I think we've had to readdress their grief as they get older, because a lot of them don't even remember that parent because they were so young. So now as they enter their teenage years, there are a lot of questions, about who that parent was and where do I come from, and just identity issues. And we've seen like a whole new layer of grief as they are aging.
But so do your kids though just accept him as their dad?
Oh yeah, we both adopted all of them.
Do they call him dad?
Oh yeah, from the very beginning. They all did, mom or dad. They were just so desiring that intact family again with a mom and a dad.
Sure. Yeah. And so how old was your oldest when you got remarried?
7.
Okay. So they were like 7, 5
or 8. Sorry, he was 8.
Like
Yeah. And then Lucas, like Mabel, she was, I think, 4. She doesn't have very many memories of her dad. And then Joshua, there's nothing there. He was not even 1 year old when Jason passed away.
Right. So, I was going to ask you what got you to start writing and blogging, but you were already doing that. So did you start that when your son was born, or what made you start blogging?
I journaled through my whole pregnancy, and those
Mhm.
journal entries are all in my first book, Sunlight Burning at Midnight. But I wanted to be a writer since I was 10 years old. I was homeschooled and writing for the local homeschool newspaper, and um, so that was always the direction I wanted to go. I ended up going to college and mastering in or getting a degree in education, English education, and then getting a
Mhm.
master's in English, like with the desire to write,
Mhm.
but also needing to make money. So in the meantime, while I tried to launch my book career, and there was always a desire to write about Lucas's story and my story with Lucas, but then it sort of morphed into this bigger story, which it just kind of keeps morphing and morphing and morphing. And
Right,
I think as long as they want me to keep writing, I'll keep writing.
right,
So,
right. So you're traditionally published, I assume?
yep.
Mhm. And how many books do you have out?
I have two. I just turned in a third manuscript about a month ago, and that book will be coming out February 2023.
Oh, okay, because I thought you had one that just released, but I guess that
Yep,
was one that you
I
just
did.
finished.
Nope. I just had one release in June, and like the next day signed a contract for another one.
Got it. Okay. What are the names of your books so that people can look them up?
Sunlight Burning at Midnight, Blended with Grit and Grace, and then the third one we don't have a title yet.
Okay, the
That
Blended with Grit
one's
and Grace, that one I've seen you
okay.
put up on your page. Yeah. So all right, so he moved to Michigan with you,
Hmm.
and now you've got, and then but you have 8 kids. You mentioned 7.
Yes,
So an
yes,
eighth one appeared.
yes, magically appeared. So yeah, we lived in Michigan for about 2 years, and then decided we wanted to go stake out a life on our own in the middle of nowhere in rural Tennessee, which is basically what Blended with Grit and Grace is about. Stories from living on 30 acres and growing our own food and raising our babies and, you know, butchering chickens and just living a very sustainable, quote unquote, simple life, which we discovered is not all that simple.
No.
And in 2017, Ryan, my new husband, began having panic attack symptoms that resembled heart attacks and ended up in ER a couple of times, just because of the stress and the overwhelm. Lucas was starting to go through puberty. We were seeing increased aggression and behavior,
Mhm.
still under the banner of special needs. And again, we lived in rural Tennessee for 6 years. So we didn't even have those therapy options. So again, we just did not come in contact with anybody who even suggested autism. And then we looked at each other one day and said, you know, we don't have to stay here. We could move towards resources for Lucas and for our family. So we moved to Nashville, thinking that that would improve the situation. And it did not. Come
Mm.
to find out, the South does not have the resources needed for families like ours. And just moved back to Michigan, my hometown, this past April. We're building an accessible home, which we'll move into first week of April. And just really hopeful. We've had really good luck finding resources and support here, and this is where our friends and family are. So we intend to stay here for quite a while.
How did he finally get diagnosed with autism?
A teacher in Nashville on a whim was like, yeah, his autistic tendencies are, and I was like, Luke doesn't have autism. And
Mhm.
she was like, yeah, he does. So I went home and Googled it,
Mhm.
and like flaming autism, like
Yeah,
as autistic as you can be. And I was like, oh wow, okay, well that explains a lot.
right.
And then got the unofficial diagnosis from his neurologist, and
Okay. So
that
what
was
school was he going to?
just a public school.
He was just in regular ed with all the other kids. He wasn't in
No, he was
special
in
class.
no, he was in a special class, but again, it was just like special needs class. When you live in rural
Just
America,
an umbrella
like
of a special needs class. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Right,
because
right,
there's only like a couple of them. And so he would go to the local high school, but yeah, his
right,
class had like 3 kids in it,
right.
and
Okay. And then
nobody,
I'm assuming she was a special ed teacher, so
yes, yeah,
that's how she knew what autism was.
right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was the
Interesting.
first time.
What's interesting to me is that he had a stroke in the womb. How did they know that? Did they pick it up on an ultrasound or what?
I don't know. That was just always the diagnosis. He had a stroke in utero, and it caused the hydrocephalus. And I was too young and naive to even ask. Like, How do you know that? And honestly, I'm not a detail person, so that wouldn't matter to me.
Right. Right. Well, just because I ask every mom about, the birth and the diagnosis and all that kind of stuff, just trying to pick out what causes autism, I want to hear everybody's different story. And you're the first person that had said that,
Yeah.
so, and I'm wondering, how did they know that? How did they pick up on that? And I'm wondering, could it be possible that other babies are having a stroke in the womb, but we don't know because nobody picked
Right.
up on it? I don't know.
And it's not as drastic maybe. And then what causes the stroke? Is
Sure.
it, could it be environmental? Could it be this? Could it be that? Is
Right.
it something that maybe we could,
Yeah,
stop
or
from
even
happening?
a seizure. Sometimes kids are having seizures and the parents don't even know that it's a seizure
Right.
until they become more familiar with it. Is it possible babies are having a seizure in the womb? Who know? I don't
Right.
know. I
True.
don't know.
Very
I'm
true.
just asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something that I wanted to talk to you about is some things that I've seen you post that I'm like, yeah, girl, right on. You got it. You're hitting the nail right on the head. It's the same thing. It's the same. You're preaching to the choir here, I'm going to read one of the things that you had posted. And because you're a writer, you do it very well, but,
Oh, well, thank
hold
you.
on, let me do it. I'm going to scroll down to the post. Okay. I guess someone asked you this question. If you could fix only one issue in the special needs community, what would it be? She asked on a balmy Tuesday afternoon as we sipped our coffee, and I paused and thought, yes, respite opportunities are desperately needed, and more direct care workers, and paying those workers better, and day programs and after school options and affordable health care and better accessibility.
And
and it's true. We need all of this, right? But none of these hurdles are my $1 million issue. This issue haunts me, the issue that keeps me up at night, the issue is always present. What will happen when I can no longer care for him, right? Okay, so let's talk about all those issues. And this is why I interview parents. And this whole thing began because a year ago, the governor where I live, his wife reads children's books every week. And somebody had said, let's see if the governor's wife will read one of your children's books, because, by the way, they want to do something, in air quotes, something for autism families. And that irritated me. And that's usually what, something lights a fire under me. And then I'm like, I can't keep my mouth shut anymore. I said, he wants to do something for autism. What would he like to do? Does he have any idea what autism families need? Does he have a child with autism? No. Does he have friends that have kids with autism? Does he know anything about what it's like to raise a child with autism? So before you decide to do something, maybe you should find out what we need. Right. So I got together like half a dozen moms that I knew from New Jersey, and I said, let's talk about what we need, and it's that list that I just read that you wrote, right? We need better. So my focus with my YouTube channel was because when Robbie turned 21, they go to school till they're 21 and then all the services drop off. Well, what do they do now? There were a handful of day programs out and they were all awful. I said, I wouldn't put my dog in those places. They're so bad. And I found one that I put him in and it was terrible. He sat in the same room all day sorting chips, never got out of his chair, sorting chips all day, where he was used to going to a school where they would take him out in the community and they'd go swimming and they do all these activities. And I said to them, don't you ever go out? And she says, oh no, we don't think they're capable of that. Oh no, I'm like, no, yeah, they're very capable. How about try?
Right.
How about just try? I think maybe you don't want to do it.
Right.
And then the next issue was, group home, because of his seizures and everything, they recommended that he go into a group home. And when we put him in, we found out they had absolutely no idea what they were doing because they've never dealt with autistic people before. And he was number 4,555 on the priority list. Come to find out, beyond that is an emergency list. It's like, no, the priority list is not the real list. You have to get on the emergency list.
We've heard the same thing in Michigan. It has to reach like a point of absolute desperation. Yes. Where like basically one of you is dying. And then your child gets in somewhere.
Yes. He's in danger of imminent peril, basically. Either, because the parents are getting ready to pass away and he's going to become homeless. And it's a desperate situation. His case his case manager told me that people would bring the kids to the hospital, drop them off, and would never come back and just abandon the child because now they're a ward of the state and now the state has to place them, you know. The reason it's that way is because there's not enough places out there for them to live.
Right. And so many loopholes that you have to jump through if you want to create something. Like they make it nearly impossible to even create anything. Because I've looked into it and I still will create something if I have to. But yeah, they make it as difficult as possible.
Yeah. So the interviews that I've just done over this past month, I interviewed someone that runs group homes, and she talked about how that was all started. It was all started by a mom that had a daughter with special needs, and you know, you start with one house and then it grows. I interviewed someone else that he has something that he calls co-home, where he and his family basically bought a house and they rent out the rooms, and they mix neurotypical people and special needs people all living in the same home. So that's a different model. You know, he's all about inclusion. And then I interviewed a man that bought farmland in Texas, and he built a whole place that's like an assisted living place. So it has all these homes, and they have a clubhouse and a pool and all that. That's my dream. That was
my dream too.
That,
Yes.
And that is what I had envisioned for my son. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to buy a farm. I want to build on it. I want to make it like assisted living, you know, and the issue is, I don't know about there, but in New Jersey, there was a big push years ago to get them out of institutions.
Right.
Okay. And they wanted them in homes. Right. And a lot of people were in Pennsylvania, and there was a big move to bring them all back to New Jersey, which was not the answer because there's no where are they going to go?
Right.
They're happy in Pennsylvania. Why are you packing them up and bringing them back to New Jersey when there's not enough homes for them to live in? So it makes no sense. So when I look at my farm idea, right, I'm basing it in my mind off of assisted living for seniors.
Yeah.
You know, we have a huge place that they're building in right up the street from me. That's very successful. They're very happy. It's tons of seniors that live up there, and they have everything there that they need. They have doctors, restaurants, everything all in one place. How come it's okay for seniors, but it's not okay for people with special needs? That makes
$1 million question. Right.
Yeah. So I think it needs to be revisited.
Yes.
You know, because they're thinking it's an institution, and I'm thinking, no, it's assisted living. And it's a lot like, and in my mind, when Robbie was 19, 20 years old, I realized that he didn't want to be home with us anymore. And even though mentally, you know, he's like a little boy, but physically, he's a 19, 20-year-old guy that doesn't want to be home with his parents anymore. And he would normally be going off to college. They want to be with their friends.
Yeah. And we've heard something
thing.
Similar from Luke.
Yes. They want to be, they want to have their own life. You know, maybe it's not like his siblings, but it's his life and his friends and his peers. Right. And so this is what the dad in Texas said. He said, I read an article where he said the exact same thing. His siblings are going off to college, and I want something where my son can feel like he's going to college and living with all his friends.
Flying the coop. Yep. And the parents should be able to have that option too, before like we reach 80 years old and we're on our deathbed. Like, we understand, and that's where my number one issue came in. Like, we need hope when they reach 18, 19, 20, because as parents, you do recognize that you're in the trenches with your young children, even your child with profound autism. Like, but then there's sort of this light at the end of that tunnel when the typical kids reach 18, 19, 20, and you're like, okay, it like that light is completely snuffed out with a child like Lucas, who will require total care for the rest of his life. There's zero hope because there's nothing available. And that's not fair to parents who do want there to be good quality options available. And there should be, like you said, I mean, we have options for our aging parents. Why don't we have options for our aging children who will require assisted living for the rest of their lives? Like, I don't understand it. Like, the whole system needs a reboot. And I'll keep talking about it till it gets rebooted. So, and you'll keep talking about it till it gets rebooted. And if enough of us are talking about it, hopefully they'll start to listen. Yeah.
I just don't know who it is that needs to listen.
I'm not sure either.
You know, from what I see, parents have to do it, because if you sit around and wait for the government to do it, it's not going to get done.
Exactly.
You know, it's parents that, you know, and that's why I'm doing these interviews, because I want to find out, how did you do it? How can I learn from you? And I'm going to make it happen. I'll make it happen. I don't know how, but you know,
I'm the same bird. And if there are enough of us moms who are like, I'm not sure where the funding's going to come from, where the time's going to come from, but I'm going to do it, then we will slowly change the world for these kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change the world
and for ourselves. For ourselves.
Sure.
Because like I say to people too, and I don't mean this to sound crass, but no, I don't want to change Luke's diaper when he's 40 years old. Like, I just want to be his mom at some point and not his caregiver. I want somebody else to be his caregiver, and I can just show up with Luke and have lunch with him or take him to a movie or something pleasurable as a mom. You know, I want to transfer that caregiving aspect over to somebody else at some point.
Interesting. So speaking of caregiving, let's talk about your foundation.
Yes, the Lucas Project. Our mission is to provide recognition and respite for special needs families. And how we do that is we've created a documentary called Unseen, which will be premiering here in Michigan, April 24. The tagline for that is how we're failing parent caregivers and why it matters. The whole concept behind that film is to peel back the curtain a little bit and expose our lives in a respectful way in order to get the change and the support and the resources that we need so desperately. We suggest changes that individuals could do for a special needs family. We suggest changes that, you know, society could do, nonprofits, churches, and then we suggest changes that policymakers could begin to consider. I really think that documentary is probably going to shake up the world of disability here in a very good way. The national premiere is going to be in May 20th to 26th. And then we're going to open that up for private screenings around the country. We've had so much interest already, like people just chomping at the bit to host their own private screening. And we've had really influential people even suggest that they want us to come into their corporation and even teach them how they could be more accommodating and inclusive for parent caregivers, which is a whole other topic. When you're a caregiver like myself or you, we can't even have 9-to-5 jobs because of all the dynamics it takes in raising a child like ours. Nobody wants to provide care for our kids in the summer. Nobody wants to offer after school options for kids like ours, or before school options, or, I mean, there's just a million reasons that you and I can't work in a corporation like 9-to-5. That's just not feasible. So that, you know, the fact that corporations are even interested in having those conversations, how could we be more accommodating to parent caregivers who want to work? And the thing is, as a society, we're going to pay for these families one way or another. You know, we're either going to pay through Medicaid and food stamps and unemployment and, you know, all these services that these families need to take advantage of because they're not working, or we're going to get them into the workforce where they begin to pay taxes and can contribute to society and have purpose for their lives as well. So that was a whole tangent about the awareness part, and then respite, we send care packages to special needs caregivers around the country, just like a little package of joy saying, we see you, we see the hard and holy work that you're accomplishing. We provide gift bags to mamas in ICUs with their children, just like a little spa package, again, to say we see you. And then we provide respite grants to communities that are interested in launching their own respite initiative for the special needs families in their community. So that's what we do.
Yeah, you had a post about respite too. What did you say? Respite is not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm not great at getting true respite. I find that I think often what I do is escape. And even all of my work in the special needs community, I mean, that's not respite. It's kind of escapism. And in turn, like feeling good about helping others, but it's not like me actually decompressing. So that's hard to come by.
Right. How did you film your documentary? Now, was it just all based on you and your family? Did you interview other families, and who directed it and produced it and all that?
We partnered with a company out of Nashville, a husband-wife team. Landslide Creative, and he's a filmmaker, she's a producer. And they followed our family for 3 years. It's primarily our family story, but they bring in a lot of other caregiving families to give their testimonials as well.
Oh, they do. Okay.
And like I said, they did it in such a dignified, respectful way that it's to instigate the change that we desperately need to see in the disability realm. It wasn't to like say like, oh my gosh, this is so miserable, I hate my life. It's not like that message. It's just peeling back that curtain a little bit and exposing the difficulties and how there is so little hope as they get older. And we're looking down this barrel. And you had mentioned that, you know, they age out at 21. We moved to Michigan also for that reason, because Michigan's the only state where they age out at 26.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So to have even another 10 years of somewhere for him to go and have purpose, and then they fall off this cliff and you're like, are they going to sit in my basement and watch VeggieTales for the rest of their lives? Like, that's not a life for them, for us. Like, they need purpose, just like we all need purpose.
Oh, so he's 18, so he'll be in school for a while then still. Okay.
Yes.
So you got 8 years to figure it out.
Unless they screw up the system here, who knows? Right. There are murmurings that things could be changing. And it's just like, do not pull that funding. Like, we just moved here for that. So time will tell. Wow.
Very interesting. All right, Jess, thank you. We talked about your books, we talked about your film. So what the name of your Facebook and Instagram page is Jess Plus the Mess, right?
Yep.
What else? Anything else you want to let people know, ways that you know they can contact you, or if they need one of your care packages or anything?
Yeah, all of the information on the care packages is at thelucasproject.org. And then the caregiver documentary is caregiverdoc.com. And if they subscribe to our updates, they'll be able to know when they can view the film, when they could host a screening, like all of that information that's involved with that documentary.
Host a screening. So I guess, where would you do that? Maybe like at a church or something where they've got the screens up front?
Yep, we've had churches, nonprofits reach out, all different avenues and venues, just inquiring about what that would look like. And it's actually a really good fundraising option for nonprofits. That's what the Lucas Project is doing. The end of April is hosting a screening, and we've gotten a lot of corporate sponsorships and ticket sales, and so it becomes a really good avenue for revenue if you use it in that capacity.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did you fund this film if they're following you around for 3 years? Who's paying for that?
We didn't make any money and they didn't make any money. It was all a passion project, and we really had a shoestring budget, but we raised the money through the Lucas Project. So it was all tax deductible, and we'll see where it goes. I have very high hopes for this thing.
That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to see it myself. I'm just trying to figure out how I would do that. So I don't know. I'll go online and look.
Yeah, the online premiere will be in May. And we'll have ticket sales at that point.
Okay, wonderful. All right, Jess, well, thank you for taking time out to talk to me today. I know you're one of your kids has a half day or something. You got to go pick them up.
Luke.
Luke, and there you go. Yeah, right.
So
I think we timed it perfectly, just in time for you to go get them. So, all right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, you have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.